Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the webinar series at the Center for Professional Selling, the lockdown version. So it may be a bad joke, but hey, I am your host, Deva Rangarajan, the director of the Sales Center. And today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Matt Nettleton, who is a sales expert, a sales guru, and more importantly, part of certified group trainers of Sandler. And essentially, recently he had a webinar, by the way, a very cool initiative by Sandler to actually have a lot of content that they share with audiences. So if anybody's interested, please go check them out. But he recently talked about what it means for salespeople and sales managers to be working from home. What are some of the challenges? What are the things that they should be doing? So I thought it might be interesting for us to have a short conversation with Matt for him to share what are some 5 common problems faced by sales organizations when they have to work remotely, and what are some 5 solutions. So again, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
No problem. I appreciate the opportunity.
Matt, one of the things which struck me was we were having a conversation the other day and you showed this slide to me, exactly this slide.
Yep.
I thought to myself, wow, this is fantastic. So why don't you take us through this? What is the source of all this knowledge that you have? And then how do you put it to use given the current circumstances?
So a little bit about my background. Since 2003, I've been training companies in sales, and I've gone in a wide variety of companies, all the way from pest control companies that are 1 or 2 people up to Salesforce.com, and companies that are based in Europe, and companies all around the US and North America. And there are certain things happen predictably when supervisors and salespeople get separated physically. Sometimes it's a business model, sometimes it's a territory expansion, but right now it's a pandemic and it wasn't exactly planned for.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, the predictable problems, the things that we've seen year after year after year and company after company after company, caught them by surprise. And so that's really where the webinar came from. The 5 most common problems that we see, and what to do about them, and how do we get people on track. So the number one problem is lack of face-to-face supervisor control, and that is, for a lot of supervisors, they don't necessarily train or coach. They simply tell people what to do and expect them to get it done. And when you have a supervisor who believes that their job is to control somebody, right, then they need to be standing face to face, because they need to be able to see, are they clicking the right button? Are they on the right computer screen? Right? They don't teach them what computer screen to be on. They want to control what they're doing. It's a very unscalable model. The next is a lack of access to information about reps. And the source of this problem typically is that none of the reps have a common language to describe what they're doing. And when they collect information into Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever CRM they're using, what they find is everybody's describing things differently. And so none of the information that they get is relevant or readily you can't translate it into a valid pipeline projection. You can't plan from it. You can't manage or coach from it, because nobody's using the same words to mean the same things. The next thing is, a lot of salespeople get hired into sales because they're extroverts. And when they get lonely, they get less productive. And they need that human touch. They need to be able to reach out and talk to somebody. They start every conversation with, so what'd you do last weekend? Or what are you doing next weekend? And that's not a conversation that you can have now, because everybody's sitting in their house. Nobody's leaving. Nobody's doing anything. And so they get lonely, and they don't know how to interact with people in a genuine, compassionate, empathetic manner, because they're out of whack. The funny thing is, when we do any sort of study for impact, the number one problem is lack of face-to-face supervisor control. But when we say, what do you fear the biggest problem will be, everybody's going to be distracted. Well, that's really not, people are going to be distracted, but people work distracted.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, there's a book called Deep Work, and
Yeah.
the premise of the book is that people simply don't know how to focus
Yeah.
and do something with great focus mentally to the exclusion of other things. As humans, we can only manage one task or thought at a time.
Yeah.
And so while everybody likes to believe that they can multitask effectively, what they can do is
Yeah.
multitask mediocrely.
Yeah.
So, that's a problem. We've got to get people that can focus. Can you do one thing at a time? Can you turn your phone off? Can you turn off YouTube? Can you turn off Netflix and make a call and ask questions and have a conversation without 6 other things going on to
Yeah.
keep you from understanding what's happening? And then the final thing is a lack of decision making by reps. Now, a lot of times this is by design. Companies have built systems where reps aren't allowed to make decisions. They aren't allowed to handle customer problems or tweak programs and processes for prospects. And so it becomes a problem when people are distributed because I cannot get immediate approval. I can't go to my manager and get him to say yes right now. I'm not looking in his office and seeing him sitting there. And so what we end up with is kind of just a locked up system where the supervisor doesn't trust the rep to make a decision. The rep doesn't have the authority to make a decision. The prospect or client can't get their problem resolved, and nothing happens. And it snowballs.
Indeed. Wonderful. So, Matt, a couple of things here as well. So, one of the things which we are finding, because when we were talking based on me reaching out to me to help me with my research. One of the things we are also finding is a problem that was not anticipated was the fact that sales reps, even if you get them and you're able to solve all these issues, sales is a job where you need other people apart from sales within your own organization to be helping you as well. And one of the things we're finding is that a lot of organizations, salespeople are frustrated because while they are used to remote working, their people who usually support them are not used to remote working. And consequently, you have this issue where salespeople are now saying, you know what, my boss is still sitting on my head.
Right.
My boss sometimes does not necessarily understand that my usual go-to people are not as efficient as they normally would have been. Do you also see that as a problem as well, given the new set of circumstances?
Absolutely. So I forget you had an academic term for it.
Yeah.
But there's that network of action without authority, right? There's always a strata of people in every company who are responsible for making things happen. Yeah. And they are the unacknowledged engine room for the company. And one of the things that happens, in a traditional market, you have reps spread out over 21 states, and those reps don't get to check into the home office, which they refer to as the puzzle palace, and they don't have the personal connections.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the most amazing things to me, I've got 2 kids and we talked about this, is younger generations. My daughter's a freshman in college, but 2 years ago, she was in the backseat of my car while I was driving, and she sent me a text. Yeah. And I was in the front seat. Yeah. I turned around and I said, you can talk to me. Yeah. And she said, I already sent you the text. Could you answer? And but if you want to have a personal connection and you want to learn to navigate a company and navigate an organization, you have to have that network of pick up the phone, have a conversation. Hey, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. How can I do that? How can you help me? What do I need to do to help you help me?
Indeed. And to what extent do you think that nowadays, every time I turn on LinkedIn, not a day goes by or an hour goes by where my contacts have these beautiful screenshots of 20 people on a computer screen. The idea is that they're trying to bring all the people together with themes like Microsoft Teams or Slack or Chatter, WebEx rooms. So now, to what extent do you think this can maybe help mitigate, if at all, any of the 5 common problems that you have here, or does it add to more problems?
Well, and when we talk, and we get to the 5 solutions, group meetings with video are a first step. They're excellent and they're important, but they don't fix the one-to-one connection problem. They don't fix the conversation that you can't have in front of everybody that you need to talk to. There's always a one-to-one connection. That question, without any debate, there is always a one-to-one connection where the person that you're talking to makes an individual and uniquely personal decision to help you for their individual and uniquely personal reasons. But they're not going to do that if you're a stranger. And you're a stranger if you don't have a one-to-one conversation.
Hey, fantastic. So that's great. So essentially we have these 5 common problems. So give us the solutions, Matt. What have you come up with?
My clients, and we say, hey, what are the 5 things that'll put place, the best place, the most likely to succeed? Well, the first one, and we already, you kind of threw it out there, but you have to have using video, right? Using video is one-to-one, right? Manager and sales rep. It's one thing to have a conversation on the phone, but if you're sitting in front of a computer and you have the ability to see the other person, I think studies have shown that as little as 7% of the content of communication is the words that are used. 35% is the tonality, but 53% is the body language, the posture, how you're standing. There are some really good commercials out right now. I think one is a State Farm commercial where it's out of their house and says, seriously, because their car's been stripped. And another person walks out, seriously, because their car's been wrecked. And a third, a brand new car for their birthday, right? And you get all these, and so that tonality and that body language and that posture and how you're standing and being able to see that and interact as humans. We're very visual creatures. Something there's some amazingly brain is designed to see pictures. So getting people face to face is vitally important. The second thing is providing communication technology options. It's not enough to say, you can text me, you can call me, or you can video chat me, right? You're going to have to give them multiple ways. You've mentioned Slack and Chatter and Jabber, and there's, Microsoft Teams, and there's all kinds of collaboration options, but you've got to have multiple. You've got to have ways for people to communicate, and you've got to have ways for them to store and build community knowledge, institutional wisdom.
Indeed. Matt, if I can just interrupt you here for a minute, because one of the things we actually heard from some of the people we interviewed was the fact that they felt that there were too many communication options today. And it went back to the very idea of distraction. So in fact, what they feel right now is that because they're all working from home, there are so many things that distract them, and having more technology options sometimes means that some salespeople feel that they're stopped all the time, because suddenly if I cannot reach you on Slack, I'm going to try and reach you on phone, or I'm going to try to reach you on chat or messenger, things like that. So what is your solution for that?
So number 5 on top 5 things to avoid. Do not expand your tech stack just because.
Okay.
Right? You can't add stuff right now. Don't go in and say, hey, I saw this really cool thing on the internet, let's put it in. Right? The worst thing that you can do right now is continue to expand the way that things are. If you don't have Slack implemented for your team, well, wait 30 days before you decide that, hey, now's the time to add it. Let people adjust. Let them get their feet underneath them. Now, I believe you should have multiple channels, but don't keep adding them simply because you want the next cool thing. Right? And that's and that's a huge element of, you can overwhelm people with choice. Right? I mean, Bernie Sanders running for president, probably the only thing he got right was that 57 brands of deodorant are confusing in the supermarket. Right? I mean, it's just too many choices. And the same thing happens with communication. If you give people too many different ways to do it, now they're just confused. They don't know where to start, and they won't start at all. Right? The next thing is clearly establishing rules of engagement, right? Letting people know that there are named meetings. There are things that they're supposed to get done. Give them clear guidelines. This goes back, hey, if you want information, here's the process. Here's the preferred communication channel. for this person, for this person, for this person. There are clients I have who prefer that I text them. There are clients that will only communicate by email.
Yeah.
There are clients that only want me to call. They don't want emails. They don't want text, just call. And so you've got to have those rules with everybody. Everybody needs to know it. Now they still have to buy into whatever the group, right? And that's the next thing. You've got to engage your team as a group on video. You've got to get those pictures of everybody's picture, 27 pictures up on your screen, and you can post that on LinkedIn. You can feel good about it, but that's table stakes. You got to get your people together. You got to get them to see each other. You got to remind them that they're part of something bigger than themselves, which is what everybody wants to be.
Yeah.
Right. And which leads us to our next one is you have to stay focused on your goals, your mission, and your vision. And of course, that implies that you've taken the time a while ago to develop goals, mission, and vision, that you've identified it, clarified it, you've shared it, people have bought in, they've contributed to it, and they know what their role in accomplishing the goals and the mission are, and they know how they fit into that vision.
Indeed. Matt, building on, especially the last part, don't you also think that when circumstances change, isn't it the role of the sales manager to also go back and say, what does it mean for the goals, mission, and vision? Because I think that now, for example, given the situation, that maybe the goals might change, but the mission and vision might still be the same, right? So essentially, what do you think, what should sales managers do, especially during times such as these?
Well, and we'll go back. I played college football, and when you get recruited for a football team, the coach does not get you on campus and abandon you.
Yeah.
Right? The coach gets you on campus and says, hey, listen, we're glad you're here. Now let me explain why you're going to be getting up at 5 a.m. every day to go to the gym, even though most college students, I don't know if you're aware of this, but most college students do not like to get up at 5 a.m. and work out for 2 hours. Right? They would prefer to sleep a lot. Right? And not work out at all if you can tell somebody, here's what our mission is, here's what our vision of success is, here's what our goals are, right? And goals are binary. You either hit them or you don't.
Yeah.
But your mission or vision are aspirational.
Yeah.
Here's what we're working for. Here's the picture we see. Right? And if we reach this vision, this mission, if we accomplish this, our goals are a natural outcome of that. Right. So as a manager, my first role, the first thing I have to make sure that I'm doing is I am constantly recruiting people to the goal, the mission, and the vision individually.
Yeah.
So that they see that they are part of it and that they're vital to the team's success, but that team success is also vital to their success.
And Matt, I think that's all the time that we have. But if I were to put you on the spot for the next 2 minutes, and I'm going to put you on the spot for two things. One is, if you were to advise 3 sales reps who have not been used to remote selling or work from home kind of context, what would 3 things be for salespeople?
So the number one thing is you need to establish a daily routine of when you start work.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is you need to have a daily routine of the minimum amount of sales behavior that you do.
Sales behavior, very important.
Sales behavior. You've got to. Nobody cares what you said you were going to do. They only care how many people you called and talked to.
Yeah. Indeed.
Right.
Yeah.
And the final thing is you need to keep a written log of your successes and failures.
Yeah.
Because by yourself, you will focus entirely on failures, and that becomes exceptionally psychologically demotivating.
Yeah.
So daily routine when you start, daily routine of what you do, and a daily track of whether or not you were successful.
Fantastic. Now, the same 3 things for a sales manager.
So again, you've got to have a daily routine for when you start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You better have a daily routine for the management behavior that you're going to do, the interactions with each of your people.
Yeah.
And it has to be tracked, because what will happen is there are going to be people on your team that you're comfortable talking to.
Yeah. Indeed.
And you'll talk to them a lot.
Yeah.
There are going to be people on your team that you're not comfortable talking to. And unless you keep track of it in writing, you won't talk to them at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And finally, you have to develop great clarity on each individual's role in the goal, the mission, and the vision. And you have to communicate that on a regular and consistent basis in a one-to-one manner.
You know what I really like about what you said now, Matt, is that you talk about coaching, yes, all of that is important, but it's kind of integrated into everything that you do. It's get ready, make sure you do it, have a goal, vision, and then if you have that, automatically coaching would be the next step that comes up as well. So love it. So thank you so much, Matt. And again, one of the things which I'm going to mention, of course, is that if there is any link to the whole webinar that you've conducted, please feel free to share it with us. I can share it with my contacts as well. And as this pandemic progresses, maybe a lot of things are going to change in the way we do business, especially in sales. It'll be very interesting to see once this phase passes, how much is the way salespeople traditionally work and sales managers work is going to be changed because of all this. So very curious to see what's going to happen, and also curious to see what you guys at Sandler are going to come up with as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.